Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Under screen, I'm gonna create a new file. I'm gonna call it Wishlist Manager Screen Event. For the first event, get wishlist items. The next event is delete wishlist item. That's all for the Wishlist Manager Screen event. Let's define the dedicated state for the screen. Let's call it Wishlist Manager State. For the first state is whether the page loading or not, and another state for is deleting. And we need the state of the error as well as the list that should be displayed under the screen. Let's call it wishlist. Let's provide here a public initializer for this wishlist manager state. And to make our life easier, we have to provide the copy function. That's all for the wishlist manager state. We are now able to implement the view model. And because we're going to deal with publishers, we have to add here the set of any cancelable. And we need the instance of use cases. As usual, we have to define the functions on event that's going to be called in our views, and it should implement the other cases, get entire wishlist as well as delete wishlist item. Let's create those functions. Let's implement get wishlist items. As usual, we need to check if the use cases is not null, otherwise going to make here an early return. And we can call the use cases get entire wishlist, receive on main dispatch queue, and sync. And because we're going to change the state of the wishlist manager screen state, we need here the weak self reference. And let's make here the card statement. In this particular case, under the completion, we're only interested in the failure case. In this case, we're going to change the state. Error is error. Now, if we have received a value, we need again to access self. Therefore, we have to mark it with weak. It is nullable, and a guard statement, the same thing that we have done here. Now, in case of loading, to change the loading state of the page to true, if we have success state, we're going to change the state, loading indicator to false, and wishlist is the data. If we have an error, is page loading false, and error, error. Underneath, you have to store and the cancellables. Now, to delete the wishlist item is very simple. First of all, going to check if the use case is not null. First of all, going to change the state of the progress indicator under the progress button is deleting true. And we're going to call the function from the use case, toggle wishlist user ID and the product. We're going to change the state of the loading indicator to false. And we have to call the callback function on success. And we have to pass here the title of the product. I'm going to change this on success to something like this. We don't need actually to pass anything here. Likewise, in this case, delete string. Let's come back to the view model. Now, if we have an error, what we have to do here, we're going to call the callback function on error. And we have to pass as an argument the error. And again, I don't need here the string and from the event as well. And we have to change the loading indicator to false. As simple as this, we have implemented the wishlist manager view model. It's not that complicated. Now let's focus on the screen. We're going to make the integration test for this view model when we are done implementing the screen. As usual, we need the state, wishlist manager state on events and delete success and delete error. For the state of a wishlist manager state, we need to mark it as a binding, not as a state. Why? Because if you do remember under the modal that's going to be shown, more specifically under the delete button, we need to control basically the state of loading. After a certain timeout, we need to change the value of loading. State is not going to serve any purpose here. The binding will do because under the progress button, we have to provide a binding, not a state. And we need the event, and we have to hoist the delete success, delete error, and whenever we click on the product to navigate to the product detail, we have done basically this under Jetpack Compose application, and we need the instance of the authenticated user. Let's add here the public initializer, and because this wishlist manager needs to interact with the modal, therefore we have to use or to inject the controller for the modal. I'm going to comment this section for the preview. We are not interested in this. Now the screen is going to be scrollable. Therefore, the entire component should be scrollable. Now, if the page is loading, we have to show the progress indicator. And let's add the loading indicator accessibility identifier for testing purposes. Now, if we have an error, we're going to show the warning message as we have done earlier. For the string from the local keys, now for the default case, I'm going to show the label my wishlist as we have done under Jetpack Compose. I'm going to wrap everything within a VStack. I'm going to add some padding vertically. I'm going to align it at the center horizontally. Now, as usual, we need to check if the list is empty. If the list is empty, we have to show the warning message. And if you do remember under Jetpack Compose application, we have delayed that particular message to be shown in order to avoid weird states under our screen. I'm going to check first of all here that the state of wishlist and the list itself is now empty. If it's empty, we're going to show the message or the warning message. Otherwise, going to show the list. And let's do that later on. Now we're going to loop over the available data. Now the product detail is nullable value. Now, if you do remember under Jetpack Compose application, we have done a specific component for this. Let's call it wishlist item view. And as dependencies, we need the product as well as the method that should be hoisted that's going to allow the user to navigate to the product detail under an H stack to separate basically the image as well as the V stack under horizontal sequence. And for the title and the rest is going to be under the V stack. Now, as usual, for the image, we need to make sure that the thumbnail is a correct URL. Therefore, going to show the network image. And if it's not a correct URL, going to show a fallback image. Now, for the next element, consists of a button that's going to allow the user to navigate to the product detail screen containing the title and another text for the price of this particular product. Let's wrap everything within a VStack. Let's add here button. For the action, it is on product click. Let's add here text, product title, mimicking what we have done under Jetpack Compose and Vuetify application. Title medium, should be bold, underline, foreground is primary. Now we have to show the price and let's add the value of is in stock. I'm going to copy the same thing under the products card for the price. And for the value of is in stock, we're going to do here text, products is in stock, the quantity as well as the label in stock. Otherwise, we're going to show the label out of stock, body medium, and for the foreground, if product is in stock, success, otherwise error. Let's do a preview for this. All right, we have to make sure that we are under the wishlist feature. Before doing that, make sure to launch the PHP Artisan serve, and you have to do the correct IP addresses under your environment. And make sure that your PHP MySQL servers are up and running. I think that's pretty much the same thing that we have done under the Kotlin version. It looks good. Let's come back to the wishlist manager screen. If you do remember under Jetpack Compose application, we're going to place two elements here under the horizontal sequence. The first one, which is the wishlist item view, and the delete button is going to allow the user to open the confirmation modal to completely delete this particular item from the list. And let's add here the wishlist item view. As we said before, going to hoist this particular one by doing product or on product click ID and here product. We're gonna add here spacer. Why? Because we're going to space between the two elements. And let's add here another component. Let's call it wishlist delete button. Basically, this is a normal button. For the action, we need to show the dialog. Inject here the modal controller, and we have to show the message. I'm gonna add here a to-do. Initially, it's gonna be an empty view. Now for the presentation of the button, it's gonna be only an image, icon delete, 26, the button style, bordered prominent, it has to be circle. And for the accessibility identifier, I'm going to do open modal content description because each view has to be identifiable in the unique manner. Argument, it is the product's ID. Therefore, I'm going to hoist this and to add here product's ID. And here we're gonna do products and ID. And for the tint, it's gonna be error, basically the background. Let's focus on the contents of the modal. I'm gonna create it as an individual view. Let's call it wishlist confirm dialog content. We should wrap everything within a VStack, lead-in, title. Underneath it's gonna be the content of the confirmation message. I'm gonna add the first text, which has the first section of the text. I'm gonna add another text, which is going to contain the product title. I think that we need here the product title. It should be bold. For the entire text, body medium on background. Or before doing that, we need to add another section of the text, which is the rest of the confirmation. Part 2. Let's add those fonts and foreground. And let's add here a padding. Now we are done with the text that has to be shown under the content. We need to add a divider and the two buttons, close button as well as the progress button under each stack. We need to add here spacer. And for the action, we're going to hoist this particular action to something like close delete confirmation modal. For the content, it's just a text that has body medium, close label, border prominent, the color which is secondary. And let's add a shadow. Next, we need to add the progress button. Therefore, we need two dependencies, the method that's going to be hoisted as well as the binding. Let's add an initializer for this component. Now let's come back to the implementation and let's add the progress button. Now for is loading, is deleting. For the action, which is delete, the width 100. For the background color, it's gonna be primary. And let's add the accessibility identifier, remove from wishlist. Now for the content of this particular progress button, it is a text showing the label delete. And I would like to add here a shadow as well as some padding to this button. Under this VStack, I'm gonna add here some padding and the background to this particular section. Let's go back to the wishlist delete button, wishlist confirmation dialog content. And to access basically this state, we need a binding from the wishlist manager screen state. I'm going to create here an internal state that's going to serve this purpose. Let's call it is deleting. And we have to do here $ and is deleting. For the product title, for the close delete confirmation modal, we're going to dismiss modal, and on delete, we're going to hoist this method, and let's add it here. We have to observe the changes of this delete or to reflect the changes of the delete under the content of the modal. If you do it like this, it's not going to work. And even if you add here a binding as deleting binding, it's not going to work. We're going to observe the changes of this delete state. We're going to assign it to the parent state, which is the wishlist manager state. I'm going to add the binding for this wishlist manager state. All right. Now underneath on change, whenever the value of is deleting under state changes, we're going to change is deleting state. We don't care about the preview. In your wishlist delete button, once the user is going to click on this button, it's going to change basically the state of is loading to true, which is a binding. Now we need to maintain the same state under the show dialog, under the implementation of modal controller. This is the content, and the content, it is basically a static content. It's not meant for a dynamic content, if you will, that has some binding and whatnot. So in order to maintain the state, we're going to hoist the state of is deleting from child component, which is wishlist confirmation dialog content, to the parent content, which is controlled by the wishlist manager. If this particular state changes from the parent, it's going to be reflected on the child component. And from the child component, it should be back or sent back to the parent in order to notify the parent with the changes. That's why we are using here binding instead of state. But for one binding, if you just do here $ and state is deleting, it's not going to work. In theory, it should work, but in reality, it doesn't. Therefore, we have to come up with something to make it work. We're going to use basically an internal state that's going to observe the changes of this binding, and it's going to be assigned, the change is going to be assigned directly to the is deleting from the binding. This is the workaround that I've come up with. It's going to work normally in a normal view, but we are controlling the view from within the observable objects. Let's come back to the wishlist manager screen. Underneath spacer, let's add wishlist delete button, product, $ and state. And whenever we click on delete, we need to check. First of all, we have to make sure that the authenticated user is not null. Trigger the event, delete wishlist item. For the ID, it is user ID. The product's ID, it's products and ID. On success, on delete success, call the event to refresh the list. This is getting out of control. I don't have enough space here because this font is very big, to be honest. In case of error, with the same manner, on delete error, underneath I'm gonna add a padding horizontal and vertical. Now, as soon as the wishlist manager screen is ready, we need to trigger the event to load the entire wishlist. I'm gonna fold this section on appear. If the authenticated user is not null, we have to call the event. All right, I think that's pretty much it for the screen. Now let's focus on the section where we have the wishlist is empty. It's gonna have basically the same problem as we have faced under Jetpack Compose. We need to delay this operation in order to avoid the weird behavior under the screen. First of all, going to show the warning message, nothing substantial. And we need to control this visibility of this warning message according to the wishlist changes. If the wishlist is empty, we're going to show this warning message. And if the list is not empty, we have to show the warning message. And it has nothing to do actually with this if statement. Therefore, I'm going to create here a state that's going to control the visibility of this warning message. It has to be false. I will make this warning message as a background of this horizontal stack, and inside we can do here the warning message, but we have to show the warning message according to the value should show empty message. All right. Next, we're going to put our warning message here, and we have to observe the changes of this value should show empty message. Whenever this background is visible, that's why we have wrapped basically the warning message with background, because we need to wrap this warning message with an invisible view. So it's not going to influence badly our layout or our visual of the screen. This is the idea basically. Now this HStack background is invisible to the screen. Whenever it is ready, after a certain delay, let's use the dispatch queue async after 1 second. We have to toggle the value show empty message from false to true. This is not enough actually. If the wishlist changed from empty to not empty, it should disappear, and vice versa. Therefore, we have to observe basically the changes of the state of wishlist. We're going to check if we should show this message or not. And to show this message has basically two dependencies, if you will. The first one should be shown and the list is not empty. Now we are able to control the visibility of warning message according to the show empty message, as well as the wishlist state of the wishlist manager screen. Let's build a preview for this. We need basically the state. We need the state object modal controller. Basically, the wishlist manager screen is the parent component. Therefore, we have to use here modal host. And let's add the environment object modal controller. For the on delete, on success, on products click, we're not interested in those callback functions. And for the authenticated user from the mock data. Now let's implement on events. In case of get wishlist items, we're going to set, first of all, the page is loading to true. And after 200 milliseconds, we're going to show the list of wishlist. Now for the other case, delete wishlist item, we're going to show the progress indicator under the progress button by setting is deleting to true. Next, we need to filter the list to mimic deleting an item. After 1.5 seconds, we're going to assign the new list as well as is deleting to false. Let's run the preview. After 1 second, we have basically this particular list. Let's click on headphones and try to delete this one. I see there is no space here and it's not bold. I'm gonna add here another space. Let's come back to the core UI. Under the typography, let's add here another value, body medium bold. Instead of regular, it should be bold. All right. And now let's come back to the screen and the content. Instead of body medium, it should be body medium bold. Let's delete first of all this item. We have the progress indicator and the item is gone. Basically right now we have just to solve why is not bold under the implementation of font or typography. If we choose, for example, bold, it has to be bold here under the raw value. I'm gonna make sure that it's the correct name of the font. Now we have this, and in order to see the full name, click on Get Info. And full name is Lato bold. So it should be capitalized. Just make sure again from the font book, it should be here capitalized. That's one. Now for the PostScript name, which is embedded in the file ttf, instead of underscore, it should be hyphen. So here I'm going to do, instead of this, switch Lato. In case, for example, of bold, we have to do return. Lato should be capitalized and bold should be capitalized. Instead of using underscore, we need to use hyphen. Likewise for the rest. Now under this screen, we need to register first of all the font by using Lato font and register fonts, and we have to do here return. We're going to preview this just for this screen, and for the rest, it doesn't matter. Now it should work. As you can see here, we have the bold font, headphones, and the fonts is being applied to the screen, which is good. Let's delete this. Let's delete this as well to check if the warning message is there. All right, we have a problem in the warning message. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. All right, I'm not very happy actually with this implementation. I'm going to delete all this. I'm going to delete everything. You can add here an optional if statement, and wishlist is not empty. You can show the list basically. All right. What I'm suggesting actually is the warning message should be always visible, but we have to control its visibility using the state. Internal state should show message. First of all, I'm going to use here vstack for the max width infinity, and we have to show, as we have done earlier, the warning message used earlier according to this state should show empty warning message. I want this warning message to be animated. Therefore, I'm going to add here transition, scale, combine it with opacity. And for the animation, interpolating spring, stiffness, let's do, for example, 200 and damping 20 or 22. For the value controlling the animation, which is should show warning message. All right. Under the vstack, we're going to do here on appear. We're going to use basically the same thing that we have done earlier. And with animation, an explicit trigger should show empty message equal true. And this should be correct if we add another if statement wishlist whenever the wishlist is empty. Now for the changes, what we have to do, if the new wishlist is empty, otherwise, if it's not empty, we're going to hide basically this. Let's add here with animation. Now with the same manner, after 1 second, we're going to show this warning message. And this whole section, let me fold this. This whole section is going to be visible regardless. All right, let's see how it's going to look like under the preview. All right, now we have the list. Let's try to delete everything. And after 1 second, it should appear. Here we go. This is what I wanted to do at first, but we have done it actually the wrong way. Now the screen is working perfectly fine. What we have to do is the integration test for the view model, wishlist manager view model. As usual, when in the instance of the view model to test, I'm gonna add here the correct wishlist. As usual, we have to construct the use cases, and under the setup function, we cannot construct the instance of the view model because we have to assign it as a main actor. Therefore, we have to do that in each test case. All right, we have done this before, and right now what we have to do is we need to test for the first function, get wishlist items should get entire wishlist for the current authenticated user. As usual, we have to arrange the instance of the view model and the mock database and other dependencies. And because we are dealing with publishers, we have to set the expectation. Let's try to arrange some data under the database to test with. Let's save the token to the mock crypto service. Next, we have to act by doing view model on event, get wishlist items, and we have to provide here the user ID. Before that, we have to observe the state of wishlist manager screen state, drop first and sync. And we have to store in cancellables. If it's loading, we need to assert that the wish list is empty. Otherwise, let's try to get the, this is optional. We have done this basically under the tests of repository. It is optional to check if we have the correct data from the database. Do here task, because going to do here an async operation by doing let cached user equal try and wait memory database get cached user data. All right, we need to make sure that we have the same list. Before that, we can assert if it's not null, first of all, the cached user. After this, we have to fulfill the expectation. We need to wait for the expectations. Make sure you are under the target wishlist feature. Switch back to the use cases or the test cases. And the test succeeded. That's all I want to do actually in this particular test. And I guess that's pretty much it for this video. For the next video, we're going to focus on the last feature, which is settings feature. I hope you have learned something new. See you in the next one. Happy coding!